Hi, we thought for this part of the podcast, we would just do another little top tip. And it was my turn this time to sort of think about something. And the thing I was thinking about, Eddie, was over the last few weeks, so these first 5 or 6 episodes we've done, we've interviewed a number of people. And one of the things that I really enjoy is just finding out how people felt at the end of a race, because I think the emotions are so interesting. For this interview, for this podcast today, I interviewed Christian Delacour, and he did this FKT, fastest known time, over the Caledonian Way, which you'll hear all about in a few minutes, and asked him how he felt at the end. And he said there was a mixture of disbelief, because he just missed the signpost actually at the end, but also of elation. And those two things, I think, sort of stood out. And I was thinking about this, and I look back on my very first ultra in 2007 when I did the Highland Fling. And I remember getting to the end of that, and just as you come up to the finish, it's not what is now. It's a massive finish now with a big red carpet, but in those days it was just a line across the ground. And I remember as I came around the corner and I saw the finish, I started crying. And the emotions that I felt were a real sense of, I'm now an ultra runner. Up until that point, for the last 6 months, I've been training and building up to it, but I couldn't call myself an ultra runner because I'd never actually done one. And when I reached that finish line, there was just a real sense of pride, and now I could call myself an ultra runner. And I've done 52 ultras now over the last 13 years. And I would say my emotions have got up and down in different ones. Sometimes it's just a real sense of relief that it's over. Other times a real joy. And so a real mixture of emotions. And I think the one which really stood out for me was last year when I did the Dragon's Back. I was 60 last year, and I wanted to do something which I knew was going to be at the limit of my ability. And that 5-day event, 190 odd miles up and down all the hills, I knew was going to be, I had to get most things right to be able to complete it. And so for 2 years, really, it had been one of the things which was in my mind and I was planning for. And on the actual day, the actual week, I'd really tried to keep myself in check all week and make sure that I didn't have too many highs and lows. I kept on an even keel. And I remember when I finished it, and you go into a sports center, and then I went into the changing room to get a shower. And I remember sitting down, and then I suddenly just burst into tears. And I was sobbing, and this guy came over and he said, just let it all out. and I think it was just that real sense that I'd accomplished something which I thought was maybe beyond my ability. And it just hit me. I think all the emotions just came flooding out. And I was just sobbing for a few minutes, just in tears. But I think it showed me just how much it meant to me. And I think that's the thing which I wanted to put across in this top tip, really, is that I think we need to prepare for those emotional finishes, because they can range from such highs and such lows, and just that sense. And I would say there's no two finishes that I've done have been the same. I felt the same way, depending on how the race had gone and depending on how it's been there. And so I was thinking, for a top tip, really, it was just to help people to prepare for that and to be aware that it's not unusual, those emotions, because these things mean so much to us. We are going to have those real emotions as we finish. So Eddie, have you got any ones that stand out for you that would really be an emotional finish, whether it was a high or a low?
Oh, so many. I'd just like to say I also remember my husband finishing the Dragon's Back race, and I picked him up from the airport, and he came through, the door sort of opened into arrivals, and he was like dragging his bag, and I gave him a massive hug, and he too cried. And I think those multi-day races are such a deep, you have to dig so deep into yourself and go so deep into yourself that it takes a long time to recover from them. But also you have to, like you said, you have to keep control of yourself so much during the week. You can't let the emotions, if you do a day ultra, it's very easy to run with the emotions, the highs and the lows of running, but those multi-day ones, you can't face those emotional thoughts and demons, can you? You have to keep them all at bay. And then often, they come out at the finish, and then they come out for the weeks and months afterwards when you allow yourself to realize what you achieve. I've had many hard ultras, emotional finishes, and I was thinking about one that really sort of reflected where I am in my ultra career and journey right now. And I think it would be probably when I ran the Anglo-Celtic Plate in Perth in Scotland. And I just had Evie, my third baby, and we stayed in the team hotel the night before, and it was the first time I'd left her. And I spent the night not sleeping, worrying that I'd left my baby, and that I was the most terrible mother, and it was basically her life was over because I'd left her. Of course, she was with grandma and granddad and having the best time, and of course doesn't remember any of this now. But yeah, and then the race it's 100k, so it was 62 laps of this 1 mile and a bit around this park. And Bryn, my husband, was crewing for me, so he came along in the morning, and we'd asked for grandma and granddad to bring the kids in sort of like the last 20k, so I sort of could focus in the morning. And the race went, as well as it could be, well as it could go, and for about the first 60k, and then the fact that I was only 8 months postnatal caught up with my legs, and I just bombed massively, and I was winning by about 20 minutes, and then I got overtaken. I just went backwards, and I got overtaken into second place. But then my children appeared, and I was sort of trying to keep this shuffle going, and I'd give myself like, right, run for 5 minutes, and then you can walk for 50 steps. And my quads they were just distraught. The pain was just, it was just the worst. I've done a ton of ultras, but that quad pain of those flat 100Ks. And my kids started running along through the park sort of to catch me either side, because you could run across this rugby pitch. And the emotion of seeing them and holding it all together in the last 10K, when I was like, oh my gosh, only 6 more of these laps to run, and my kids running around, and I could see my little baby perfectly happy, of course, so I'd beaten myself up all about this, and I kept on going when it was so hard. And when you're running laps, you can't get away from anybody, so you're seeing people all the time. When you're out in an ultra and you have a bad patch, nobody will see, and you can be running for hours on your own. But of course there were people watching all the time as I was going through this. I had to work so hard to maintain that sort of mental composure, because all I wanted to do was cry. And I was so proud of myself for battling through that and for finishing. And I remember finishing and getting the England flag, and though I was disappointed with the time and not winning, I remember, I've got a great photo, and I remember the first thing I said when I finished was, where's my baby? I want to cuddle my baby. And I got hold of Evie, and I had kids, and then the kids got my prize at the end. And I was like, though it was awful, the race, it was really hard. It was, I was really proud of myself for showing the kids what their mum could do, and that when things don't all go according to plan, you carry on and you battle through. And they were such an inspiration to me as well, seeing them, they were so proud of their mum. Didn't matter. I mean, I could have been walking, I could have been coming last. They wouldn't have minded. They were just like, look at mum, she's running round and round this path. So that was really emotional, because it showed what I could still do and how deep I could still dig after having the kids. And something my husband then said to me afterward, that was like, it doesn't matter, you go and do your sport, whatever you want to do, but you have to be enjoying it, and you have to be, even in those really dark moments when obviously you hate everybody and you're not enjoying it, but as long as you're out there and you're having fun, doing what you love, you don't need to worry about what we're doing, and just focus on what you're doing. And that sort of made, from then on, that sort of changed my way of thinking and changed my way of finishes, because it didn't really matter what I did out on the trail or where I finished or what the time was, as long as I was enjoying it. And so then every time I finish an ultra, then I've been able to reflect going, oh, that went really well, that didn't go so well, but I did, in the end, I did really enjoy it. And I think that's taken away some of the pressure now. So yeah, that was hugely emotional, and I still look back on it now with great emotion that I did that. But I'm so happy that the kids got to see me do that too. I expect tears as well, probably, at the end of the South Downs Way, John, as I wait you at the finish.
That's right, you will. Yeah. So there's some of our stories, and we thought for this week for our competition, and this week we've got a bandana, a cheer charge bandana, and we're looking for your emotional finishes, and we'd love to see some photos, wouldn't we, Eddie? So if people could send a photo and an explanation of how they felt at the end, then we'll judge those, and we'll have a prize of a bandana for next week.
The ugliest photo finisher that you can muster. The more emotion, the better.
Yeah. Just one warning though, we'd rather not have feet if possible.
Oh yes, no feet. They'll be deleted instantly.
Yeah.
No bareness, no nakedness.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that, and that was really interesting to hear as well about our emotional finishes.